Hey Cara, Mrs. Walsh here. I'm going to walk through your paper and talk about my comments. I think that you mean American feminism and Anna Karenina as we get started, like you're using American feminism to talk about Anna Karenina. And there's just a little coherence issue here at the beginning. I think that especially at the beginning of the paper, the writing is very good. You do a good job of qualifying assertions that you make in order to be able to ground them in the text and in the critics. I think it's working very well. You talk about how Anna, Kitty, and Dolly all respond to the expectations for women in different ways and thus find themselves in vastly differing situations. The introduction is also a place where if you wanted to, you could mention other minor characters who also are situated with regard to the expectations of society and how they wind up as a result. Your thesis itself is really interesting, nicely qualified and constructed. These three show how a singular and blanketing set of expectations for all can be extremely harmful to many, how there has to be a happy medium, and through embodying these traditional roles for women or rejecting them entirely. I think it works well. I don't feel that by the end of the paper that you have necessarily fulfilled this thesis. I feel like the critique of Tolstoy is something that becomes a lot stronger toward the end of the paper, but I think that this thesis is well written, and there are places where you gesture back to it, like for example in the character of Kitty, in a way that makes the paper as a whole nicely unified. So just little corrections along the way. This topic sentence, Tolstoy uses the fates of Dolly and Anna as a means to show his own views on traditional roles for women. Because I've read the next paragraph after this, I know that you eventually get there. I think that this paragraph, though, is argumentation. Actually, yes, there's some textual connection here, but it's mostly argumentation about the coherent response that we have as we read these characters. And then once we get to the next paragraph, we do understand that you're talking about how Tolstoy supports, or how the traditional views of women are supported through a little snippet from Tolstoy's diary. For 70 years, I've been steadily lowering and lowering my opinion of women, and I must lower it still more and more. The woman question, how could there not be a woman question, only not about how women should control life, but how they should stop ruining it. So is this a moment in Tolstoy's life, 25 years after the publication of Anna Karenina? I mean, I think it's important, definitely, but I'm not sure I'm ready to say that this is a kind of distilled statement of Tolstoy's attitude toward women. It's in his diary. It could very well be a moment. I mean, certainly Tolstoy knew that his diary would be preserved, but at the same time, I'm not sure I'm ready to apply this to everything that comes after it. But sure, okay, we want to pay attention to this, and we want to be wary of Tolstoy as a result of this for sure. All right, so as we understand, we can see that the relationship of the characters to an anti-woman sort of statement is something that can be supported, and so you explore that to some degree. Again, by the time we're here, Tolstoy's being able to create so many complex and conflicted female characters is definitely impressive when taking into account his own personal views. I feel like this statement goes too far, again, because I'm not sure that this passage represents Tolstoy's views as a whole. It certainly represents something that we want to pay attention to, but I'm not sure that it's a blanket statement that enables us to say that this is the last word on what Tolstoy has. And then you talk about a comparison to a character in War and Peace. We understand then you move from this point and talk about Kitty as being able to balance. This is that place where you connect to that happy medium comment earlier, in the thesis earlier, in a way that makes sense. So we can see that this is happening. By the time we get to the end of this paragraph, and you've done a nice job of setting up who she is and what she's about, through their friendship, Varenka serves as an amazing role model for Kitty. Again, like the amazing, wonderful. I'm not sure that in an analytical paper, it's still the time to write like this. The rest of your writing is so good that I feel like I can say that frankly. Leading her to grow in faith, something that serves as a major factor in what Tolstoy would likely consider the perfect woman. Yeah, probably, but you haven't demonstrated that. So if you don't want to stop and demonstrate that, and I don't know that the biographical criticism is particularly helpful, if you can't demonstrate it, you can leave this out. And we also understand that the mentoring of Kitty leads to Kitty's being set forth by the novel as, if not the perfect woman, then somebody who's successful given the strictures of society. While female characters typically work outside the home, the expectations for the men of the novel are very different. Well, okay. One of the biggest double standards when it comes to Anna Karenina is society's response to Anna's affair versus Steva's affairs. Okay, that I understand. I'm not sure how it relates to this first idea, and I'm not sure who's working outside the home. Like, I'm not sure how this is supportable as a statement about the novel because of the strictures in society as a whole. This, though, I think what the paragraph goes on actually to do is a stronger idea to look at Anna's affair versus Steva's affairs. But you do have to acknowledge that there is a difference between what Anna is up to and what Steva is up to, in that Anna is willing to leave her family in order to pursue her affair, while Steva doesn't leave Dolly. So, I mean, I don't think what Steva is doing is right or excusable, and I don't like that there's a difference in the way that they're treated, but it seems like the way that the novel has set them up, it's made them different, in that what Anna does really is a kind of overt assault on the family, whereas what Steva does is, a slow erosion and causing to rot, right? But there is a difference there that you need to acknowledge. Similarly, when comparing Anna's treatment and Vronsky's treatment, the problem is that Anna is married and Vronsky is not married. I get that that's not cool, but it's also a factor that you need to acknowledge more fully. And then when you talk about the double standard, what I wonder is, like, is this a critique of Tolstoy when you say that that Tolstoy, sets up Anna in this way, or is it a critique perhaps of society's ideas? When I read the portions of the novel that are about Anna being shunned by society, I feel very strongly that the novel doesn't wish for me to be like, yeah, Madame Katavasov, go shun Anna. I mean, I feel like the novel is pretty negative about the way that society treats her. And it's not that in ways society is being critiqued there. I don't know that your paper needs to go there, but as opposed to the upholding of society's view. I feel like also Vronsky echoes that, like, he knows what's going to happen when Anna goes to the theater, but he doesn't want her to go because he's concerned about it. But I don't feel like at any point there's any voice in the text that's saying that this is correct, and a kind of exemplar or like emblem of Tolstoy's views. By the time we get to the last paragraph, the conclusion, you're back to your thesis idea, which is, of course, the right thing to do. The thing is, though, that the paper has gotten pretty far from that thesis in its condemnation of Tolstoy. Has the thesis itself prepared us for this condemnation of Tolstoy? If not, then I think the thesis can be modified to accommodate it somewhat. Like, I think that it should be in the paper and that the thesis should accommodate it. But at the same time, maybe the focus of the paper can come back a bit to what you started with. So there does need to be a kind of moment where the ideas of the thesis are clearly the ideas of the paper. And I think, again, your initial emphases are good, but they don't always show up all the way through the paper, especially when a lot of the paper is a critique of Tolstoy, which is not represented in the thesis. So we need to bring those things together. Again, I would rein in the critique a little bit, even as you maintain its main strokes, and I would make sure that the emphases of the thesis come through in the various local places where they're meant to, so that topic sentences are working as hard as they can to show how each piece fits within the overall thesis. So we're excited. You center this For the URLs, you don't necessarily need the URLs for something that's going to be from a print source because the page numbers are going to be the same even if JSTOR goes down. This looks very good. You need to include Tolstoy, so include the novel, and I am not 100% sure whether you quote all of these. I recognize many of them, but make sure that your works cited only contains your works cited, and that any additional works that you want to include, you'd have a further page called a works consulted page, in which you would list those other sources that influenced what you have thought but haven't actually been quoted in the paper. And don't forget Tolstoy. All right, so again, a lot of good writing here, especially toward the beginning of the paper. I look forward to reading along with what you decide to do about the issue of the critique of Tolstoy in your thesis, how you bring those ideas together, and I look forward to reading the final product. Thanks.